The protagonist suddenly wakes up and sees a massive shredder. If they fall, they die. There are other people in the same dire situation, and if they fail to complete the game, they'll die too. Obviously, no one knows how they ended up in such a scenario. This deadly game is controlled by some unknown figure, who makes it clear that the situation is tied to life and death. What follows is a challenge, finding the right key underwater within a limited time. And it only gets worse. This is just the beginning, or rather, a qualifying event meant to filter out the trash before the main game begins. Luckily, the protagonist is no ordinary individual. He is determined to survive this deadly game, hunt down the bastards behind it. However, he has to complete the game without dying. Anyways, in a stern lecture, a man addresses two boys about the art of war by Sun Tzu and its countless strategies. He laments how this art has drifted from its original nature, becoming a required skill in unconventional industries within their country. Eventually, it devolves into a term associated with deception and fraud, used to swindle money. As the traditional inheritor of the art of deception, their Mu family's thousand faces has become known as the lucky face among countless cheaters in the world. The man's brow furrows as he approaches a boy sleeping through his lecture. He pinches his ear, demanding to know why the boy is sleeping again. The boy, Mu Fei, complains loudly. The man expresses frustration, wondering if the kid lacks ambition, always eating and sleeping. But Mu Fei lazily replies that it's natural to eat when hungry and sleep when tired. This successfully makes the man's vein throb with anger. Annoyed, he begins swearing and tries to tear Mu Fei's mouth apart, literally, causing Mu Fei to apologize profusely. Just then, the other boy interrupts, addressing the man as father. He questions why they need to master their family's arts, the thousand faces, since they live in an era of law and democracy. Though a valid point, the father sternly replies that no matter the era, people will always have bad intentions. He emphasizes the family's responsibility to protect their reputation, especially with enemies built up over hundreds of years. Naturally, no one knows what the future holds, which increases the need for his sons to master the thousand-face gate technique. In other words, the art of deception. Better than anyone, they must be able to make their enemies fall into their hands. But midway through the session, Mu Fei falls asleep while standing. Yeah, bro is really not a fan of fatherly advice. The scene transitions to the present. Mu Fei slowly opens his eyes, his head throbbing. Strangely, he sees someone dressed in a bird suit, leaving him completely puzzled. He has no idea what's happening. Stunned, he wonders why there is some kind of collar around his neck. Before he can process anything further, the person in the bird costume is relieved he is awake and insists he helps quickly. But Mu Fei is more interested in why the hell this person is dressed as a bird. This causes the person to lose balance, dragging Mu Fei down in the process. Everything is going south, until Mu Fei swiftly saves both of them. Gripping on tightly, he begins to ponder the situation. Then he looks down. His blood runs cold instantly. Just like something straight out of a horror movie, it's a giant shredder. Nothing out of the ordinary. Mu Fei curses, wondering how he ended up in such a hellhole. In the background, he realizes he isn't the only victim. Sounds of others pleading and begging echo around him. In another room, two people are in a heated fight, wielding weapons against each other. One is a police officer, furiously demanding the other remove the collar. He insists that kidnapping an officer is a crime. The other, a thief, claps back, asking if the guy's a fool for not realizing both of them are locked up. From their conversation, it turns out the cop ended up here while tracking the thief. While all this is happening, a figure wearing a pig mask pushes a cart into the room and addresses them as invited guests to a game called No Regrets. It introduces itself as the caretaker of the 30K level. Hearing this, both the cop and the thief demand to be released and ask if the pig is involved in their kidnapping. The pig doesn't say much, only wishes them the best since not everyone will make it, and he hopes to meet them in the second level. Then he leaves, letting them figure out the rest themselves. Just as the cop threatens to shoot the pig, he is stunned as it suddenly disappears. Even Mu Fei is surprised the pig vanishes, though we know he simply walked away. Regardless, Mu-fei tries to understand how he ended up in this slaughterhouse. The last thing he remembers is getting hit by Truck-kun, with his brother inside. Everything after that is blank. He is abruptly pulled out of his thoughts. Struggling, he yells at the bird. The bird person quickly apologizes and begins thinking of how to survive. Suddenly, a screen lights up showing the game rules. To summarize, each condition is outrageous, leaving room for only one person to survive. They can escape using the correct password on their collars, but if they enter the wrong one, they die. And if nothing is done before the countdown, it's game over. Both of them are in disbelief, wondering what the password could be, concluding they might be doomed. At that exact moment, the shredder engine roars to life. Mu-fei, clutching his collar, gasps. He couldn't breathe. He insists the bird take off the costume. The chick hesitates at first, but quickly agrees. The next moment, Mu-fei is momentarily flustered. Who would have guessed the chick was actually a chick, with a figure like that? Seriously, if our boy makes it out alive, he's definitely not sleeping alone anymore. Meanwhile, the chick has no idea what Mu-fei is thinking. Regardless, he quickly cooks up a plan to save them. If he doesn't, in less than 5 minutes, their fate will be the same as that bird costume. He starts by scanning the area. It is smeared with blood. The place is massive, and someone went to great lengths to bring people here. But his thoughts are interrupted as the chick starts panicking, explaining how she was kidnapped, adding to his frustration. Trying to stay reasonable, Mu-fei tells her to stay quiet. He needs to think clearly. Unlocking the collars is top priority. But the chick shows a mix of concern and doubt. He expresses his thoughts. Their captors could have killed them easily, but instead, they went through the trouble of capturing them, giving them rules, and placing them in a situation where they must sacrifice each other to survive. She looks confused and stunned. Normally, killing your opponent is the only way to survive. Or at least, that's the illusion the pigman wants them to believe. In response, the chick is scared. She is unsettled by how lightly Mu-fei speaks of killing, as if it meant nothing. Mu-fei, stunned by her reaction, basically confirms her point, adding nonchalantly that he's seen worse things than killing. Trembling, she guesses his identity, hoping he's not some kind of serial killer. Mu-fei decides not to reply. Basically, bro comes from the Mu family, a long line of con artists. Panicking, the chick misunderstands, thinking he's some kind of mafia boss. Now she pleads for her life, adding that she'd do anything. But Mu-fei isn't interested in her yapping. He insists she find the password to the collar, because he can't guarantee what he'll do when the timer runs out. This makes the chick scared beyond her wits. In the other cell, the cop tries to contact his team. After all, murder is a major crime. But the thief suddenly snaps back at the cop, reasoning that he has the advantage. Pointing his tool at him, he roars, claiming a hammer at close range beats a gun. In other words, the fool thinks he's faster than a speeding bullet. Just like that, the tension escalates, both of them pointing weapons at each other. Suddenly, someone from the next cell, in a life-threatening situation, begins to plead for help. The thief recognizes the voice as his big brother, Chan, and promises to save him. Meanwhile, his opponent is literally struggling to hang on. He can't breathe, warning the guy to stay still. Things become more tense, as the guy reaches his wit's end from frustration. With no other choice, he reaches into his pocket, noting that his opponent is just a robber, concluding he's no one significant. Hearing this, the man grows desperate, pleading through tears while sweating bullets. But his pleas fall on deaf ears as the distressed man has no choice but to cut the rope. The thief in the other cell hears the commotion and shouts in desperation. But it's already too late. Honestly, no one could blame the man for saving himself. There's nothing he can do now but stare in shock, just as screams and the sound of crushing bones echo through the place. Next, there's a commotion. Others plead with the pig-headed man for help, even promising compensation. But then, a ladder descends as the system announces the dead contestant as Luo Chang, and the survivor as Jin Song. Jin Song's collar automatically unlocks, making him ecstatic. He tosses the damn collar aside and leaps toward the rope ladder. Meanwhile, the masked figure looks furious, cursing Jin Song. He demands Jin Song return, all while trying to break through with his hammer. In a desperate attempt at revenge, he tries to forcefully remove his collar. Sensing the danger, the cop no longer stays quiet and urges him to calm down. He also spots something that makes his eyes widen in shock. The passwords are behind their collars, and the collar is emitting a beeping sound, indicating an explosion. And just like that, the thief literally loses his head as the collar explodes. Honestly, this reminds me of Suicide Squad. Anyway, the system announces the thief is dead, and the cop, Zhao Jun, has passed. His collar automatically unlocks as the ladder descends. Looking tense, Officer Zhao Jun tries to process the gruesome event. But before leaving, he shares a tip, helping the others realize the way to escape, though Mu-Fei seems somewhat skeptical. So he voices his thoughts, pointing out that the officer's tactic won't work. Basically, it's no longer effective. He references the timer, summarizing his hypothesis. There's a 5-minute cooldown after unlocking a collar. But here's the catch. The password discovery must be done within a minute. However, who's willing to stake their life on a stranger? After all, killing your opponent directly completes the level. If he's right, people are probably struggling to hold back the urge to kill, setting the stage for pure chaos. Mu-Fei's words prove true. In one cell, both a manager and an employee are paired together. The woman is forced to reveal the password while struggling to breathe. The boss, annoyed, snaps, saying he had to resort to this because of her stubbornness. He calls her ungrateful, claiming he took care of her. He makes prioritizing himself sound selfless. But in the next moment, the boss shows a shocked expression. The password is incorrect. The girl pulls a fast one on him, realizing he was tricked at a critical moment. But an explosion ends his yelling. Meanwhile, the girl shows a stone-cold expression, making it seem like the man deserved death. In another cell, a man ends his opponent. What follows next is a series of announcements about contestants progressing to the next level. Meanwhile, our boy is stuck in contemplation, trying to find an alternative. He's deep in thought, facing a difficult decision, until the chick speaks. Sensing his tension, she tries to build trust by offering to help find his collar password, finally introducing herself as Jiwan, making it sound like she's sacrificing herself. This leaves him speechless for a moment. But he quickly snaps out of it, growing a bit skeptical. He questions her sincerity, pointing out that she never dared take off her mask. From their conversation, trust remains the core issue. Let's face it, bro doesn't believe her. Everyone in the game is somehow tied to crime or illegal activity. But this creates an opportunity for Shuefei to explore, which makes the chick curious. Determined, he shows his password, on his back. Even though the password clearly reads 721, she still gives the wrong number. The next moment turns tense. Mu-Fei makes a critical move. With only 2 minutes remaining, the chick panics and stutters, asking what he's planning. Gesturing, our boy insists she input the password herself, claiming he forgot it, leaving her stunned, realizing the depth of his trust. Rather, bro is exploiting a rule: if your opponent lies, they die. Although it seems reckless, bro has everything figured out, and he's fully determined to pass all levels. The chick shows a panicked expression, asking Mu-Fei if he's serious. On the other hand, he displays a smug expression, clearly exploiting a loophole in the rules. Especially rule number 4, which causes the collar to explode if the password is incorrect. Mu-Fei remains calm as ever, despite the girl being stunned. Basically, if she lies, she dies, and he'll automatically pass the level. The chick grows tense, finally realizing her situation, while our boy urges her to input the password. In response, the chick becomes anxious and full of apprehension, especially while questioning his confidence. Hearing this, Mu-Fei furrows his brow, growing impatient. He makes a counteroffer. If she's too scared, he proposes inputting the password to her collar himself. He stresses the urgency, reminding her she needs to make a choice. Still a bit apprehensive and anxious, the chick's hand trembles in fear as she reaches for Mu-Fei's collar. With a smile, he teases her about inputting the wrong password, but she insists he stop playing around. Immediately, the system announces Mu-Fei's collar is unlocked, followed by the chick's collar. Just like that, both successfully pass the level, finally breathing a sigh of relief, while the chick stands there somewhat shocked. Our boy is a bit amused, addressing her by her real name, Rao Jiechi. Man, this chick used 3 fake names. Also, as the narrative continues, I'll often refer to her as the chick. Before leaving, Mu Fei issues a crucial tip about unlocking the collars, using the rope ladder to escape. Mu Fei emerges into the next level, greeted by a masked pig with a stern yet menacing expression. He starts by addressing the survivors. Meanwhile, our guy wonders if this place is some kind of slaughterhouse. The angry cop suddenly catches everyone by surprise, instructing the pig to put his hands up. But the pig is unimpressed, even challenging the officer to shoot. Contorted with rage, the cop fires multiple shots at the pig man, just as the speeding bullets are about to make an impact. They suddenly stop, like they hit some kind of barrier, before falling to the ground. Mu Fei's eyes widen in shock and confusion, clearly not expecting the outcome. Meanwhile, the cop looks extremely shocked, his face filled with disbelief and confusion, just like the rest of the group. Now serious, the pigman addresses everyone. He reintroduces himself as the general card and host of the game, stating they needed to adapt quickly if they wanted to survive. Mu Fei, now deeply contemplative, processes the newly acquired information. Maintaining his expression, he observes that their escape route has completely disappeared, like it was never there in the first place. Seeing other contestants emerging from the first level, Mu Fei firmly concludes how strange this place is. The realization gives him a sense of unease. Anyway, the pig notes that time was up and a total of 410 contestants started at the 30k level. Exuding authority, he notes that those who failed to complete the first stage would be eliminated. Our boy remains calm, while the rest are horrified. It turns out the first stage was a trial, and only 79 out of 410 survived. Now that they'd all made it to the second level, the system begins registering them as official players. Suddenly, everyone feels overwhelming pain on their wrists. Mu Fei is momentarily surprised, discovering some kind of start button, which confuses many. Upon touching it, a system window appears in front of him. The window shows his name, basic attributes, no awakened skill, which is quite unfortunate, and his clearance progress. Unlike our girl, Rao Jiechi, the chick, she appears confused by the system window, not to mention she already awakened a skill called Domain Charm. Basically, her power can turn any guy into a simp, or that's what I think. Anyway, the lights suddenly go out, sending everyone into panic. Adding to the tension, the card general announces the official start of the 30k levels game. When the lights come back on, they find themselves suspended in the air, expressions of utter bewilderment across their faces. The pigman suddenly appears with a megaphone, getting a bit nostalgic as he boasts about his past athletic prowess, setting a high-stakes tone for the upcoming challenge. He challenges them to test their speed. Appearing confident and authoritative, he delivers a new rule: the first 10 people to reach the pitch will survive. And like that, the countdown begins, signaling the start of the competition. Contestants begin dashing with zero care for others. In the process, some are eliminated by falling from the platform. Mu Fei is caught off guard, causing him to lose his footing, resulting in him falling from the platform. His eyes convey a sense of resignation and helplessness. It looks like his life is about to end, until a hand grabs him just in time. A guy wearing a hoodie saves Mu Fei. Looking up with wide eyes and a faint smile, Mu Fei shows immense relief. He's just been rescued from a perilous situation. The guy, Ming Xiaotian, 28 years old, looks confident and slightly smug, recognizing Mu Fei as a streamer he often watches. Pulling Mu Fei up, Ming Xiaotian grins, extending a hand to help. Mu Fei is grateful and relieved, expressing his thanks. The moment conveys camaraderie and mutual support after a tense situation. Ming Xiaotian, confident and determined, declares that his idol won't die and expresses his confidence in his own speed. He seems genuinely committed to helping. But Mu Fei looks thoughtful and serious, gazing forward as he expresses his insight. Speed might not be the key factor. He observes their surroundings. He lets the guy in on his thoughts, highlighting how the short distance could be covered in under 5 minutes, yet they were given 30 minutes. He implies there's a hidden trick in this challenge. As expected from our boy, ever thoughtful, impressing Ming Xiaotian in the process. On the way, both finally introduce themselves. Upon entering the building, the guys freeze, spotting different rooms. A hint explains each room can contain different numbers of people and offer different levels of difficulty. They spot one room filled with 8 people and another meant to contain 10, with 6 spots still open. Before they could decide, the chick spots Mu Fei. Feeling apologetic, she approaches with concern, but our boy is somewhat annoyed and dismissive of her act. Just then, a young boy, Ding Xiaochun, appears. For naming's sake, let's just call him Kid. A bit timid and nervous, looking up at the taller guys with a hopeful yet anxious expression. He wanted companionship, revealing his vulnerability. But Mu Fei, with a stern, serious, and somewhat cold expression, is not ready to bear such responsibility. Though he says this, the boy insists they head into the room of 8 members, with 4 openings. Upon entering the room, a bang sound rings out, indicating the room is now full. Suddenly, the group reacts to the sudden appearance of a wall and water through a window, suggesting a new, unexpected, and potentially dangerous development in their surroundings. They spot many keys on the other side, and anyone knowledgeable enough would shiver at this point. Adding to their confusion, a key is spotted hanging from the ceiling. Before they could decide how to get to it, the key suddenly falls, leaving our boy in disbelief, as the knot holding the key unties itself, and through some kind of vent, it successfully mixes with the others, much to everyone's astonished gaze. And just like that, the true test begins, with rules similar to the first round. The only difference is, this time, they must find the correct key to open the door. Using the wrong key results in failure. Looking at the keys in the tank, the group reacts strongly, noting that the task is too ridiculous. The keys being indistinguishable make them express frustration. Suddenly, an announcement rings out, and water begins filling the tank containing the keys. Turning to Mu Fei, Ming Xiaotian hopes he has a plan. Making a hand gesture, he mentions an ancient divine teaching from Qing, or at least that's what it translates to from Chinese. Anyway, he believes they aren't in danger yet and insists they head into the tank to find the correct key. Otherwise, the room will eventually be submerged. Clenching his teeth, the bald guy interrupts, offering to shut off the water instead. But in the process of trying to shut it off, the man becomes confused. Applying more force, he is sent flying. He expresses frustration and annoyance that the valve broke so easily. Another chimed in, calling the bald one a fool. It was obvious the mission wasn't going to be easy. All he could do was curse the people who created the game. Just then, the chick figures something out while Ming Xiaotian reacts with curiosity. She explains her discovery, noting the pattern of the lock. The lock is a common civilian C-type lock. Simply put, the key to unlock the door has 3 grooves. From what she observes, most keys in the tank have only 2 or 1 groove. Understanding this, Ming Xiaotian realizes the mission will now be easier. He doesn't forget to compliment the chick, before he can ask about her previous profession. Mu Fei enters the tank in search of the key. The group watches, impressed by his decisiveness. However, the rules stated there were over 1,000 keys. So Ming Xiaotian suggests they join Mu Fei to speed things up. But the kid interjects. Apparently, he couldn't swim and is scared of drowning. The rest follow suit, revealing they couldn't swim either, which is ironic. Ming Xiaotian reacts lightheartedly, concluding that even with just 4 people, they still had a chance. Not to mention, they had plenty of time. But the old man hesitantly emphasizes that it had been a long time since he last went underwater. This only increases Ming Xiaotian's frustration. He now hopes the chick wouldn't back out. To his relief, she agrees without a second's hesitation. Just then, Mu Fei emerges after being submerged for a while, holding a bunch of keys. He acknowledges the chick was right. Finding the correct key would now be much easier. Without a moment's hesitation, both of them jump into the tank. Everything would have been fine if a new condition hadn't been triggered. A hidden rule appears on the blue screen, unsettling everyone. If 3 people die, the rest will progress to the next level. Panic and disbelief spread through the group. To make matters worse, the filling speed increases, creating a greater sense of urgency. Turning to the bald guy, the blonde, or should I say Jin's song, recalls Ming Xiaotian's earlier optimism, now questioning the task's difficulty, given the worsening situation. Baldy's face contorts with a mix of panic and desperation, urging Mu Fei's group to act quickly. But the next moment, his expression shifts. He shouts. He demands to know what the blonde guy was thinking. In response, the blonde's expression turns grim and serious. He notes that finding the key was a fool's errand, so he proposes drowning Mu Fei's group. Since the hidden rule implied the rest would live if 3 died, the logic made twisted sense. When Baldy tries to protest the absurdity of the idea, a huge smack lands on the back of his head, causing bleeding. The female employee roars at his childish idea of teamwork. After all, the game was every man for himself. Baldy shows a mix of anger and fear as he curses. In desperation, he lunges, intending to end her. Unaware that the blonde was using this as an opening, just like that, Baldy is stabbed violently. The blonde reveals a satisfied, almost sinister grin. He makes a grim statement, emphasizing he had no moral concern or personal preference about who died. The old man and the kid nearly wet themselves in fear. Meanwhile, inside the tank, the group is unaware of what is happening outside. Ming Xiaotian, thinking to himself, acknowledges his own speed in sorting the keys. He observes Mu Fei and the chick, concluding the task would be done in no time. But his thoughts are interrupted. He now holds a key with 3 grooves in his hand. Emerging from the water, he holds it up triumphantly, a wide grin on his face, only for the moment to be ruined by the chick holding up a similar key. Surprised there was more than one, he instantly recalls Mu Fei's earlier statement about the Qing teachings. Anyway, the moment is cut short by the falling body of the bald man. The group voices their confusion aloud. The blonde immediately switches up, lying that Baldy tried to kill them, so they had no choice. But their expressions betray them. Anyone with 2 brain cells could tell they were lying. When exposed, the blonde grabs the kid and demands the keys in exchange for the boy's life. Ming Xiaotian, filled with anger and disgust, calls out the man's inhumanity. With resentment, he throws the key, demanding the boy be released. The girl inspects the key, her tone thoughtful, clearly aware there were more. The chick hesitates, not wanting to give up the key she had worked hard to find. But the blonde initiates a countdown, signaling the kid's end. At the same time, Mu Fei emerges from the water, wearing a stern expression. Obviously unaware of what had happened while they were submerged, his priority is saving the kid. However, with a grim look, he issues a critical warning to those above, one that makes them think twice before acting. Despite her annoyance, the girl has no choice but to follow Mu Fei's command and give up the key. Now, it is time to let the kid go. Mu Fei's words sound like a threat, making the others visibly uncomfortable. In response, the girl closes the hatch to the tank, stunning both the chick and Ming Xiaotian. Mu Fei, however, remains calm. They even go as far as chaining the hatch shut, ensuring the group would drown. With a knowing smile, the girl taunts them, intentionally provoking our boy to act. Ming Xiaotian, on the other hand, shows extreme anger toward them while the chick panics in despair. Turning to Mu Fei, the chick questions and reminds him of his previous claim, hoping he'll create another clutch moment. Meanwhile, Mu Fei simply inspects the hidden rule, unsurprised by the significant development. Contrary to the chick, who is horrified, and Ming Xiaotian, who is furious upon realizing the blonde and the girl have decided to sacrifice them. However, our boy remains calm despite their helpless and difficult situation, which raises questions. His mind drifts to a distant memory. They never expected a surprise attack, falling into the enemy's trap. Amidst the chaos, we see little Mu Fei in pain. His eyes show emotional distress. Even so, he hoped to reunite with his parents. But the emotional roller coaster is cut off by a figure. He assesses the situation and decides to use himself as bait. Though he acknowledged the gravity of the situation, he notes the task wasn't light. He needed our boy to cover him, and if he died, Mu Fei must avenge both their parents alone. Firmly, his brother advises him to remain calm, emphasizing that losing composure means losing the battle. In response, Mu Fei tries to stop him, revealing his weakness while expressing his vulnerability and fears. But his brother sternly explains the consequences of failure and the necessity of action to overcome fear. After giving his brother the pep talk and mentioning the art of war by their ancestors, he dives into the water. Mu Fei reflects on a quote, "The way of a general, one must first govern his mind. And if Mount Everest should fall, one's determination mustn't change." In other words, one must remain calm and composed in extreme danger. He continues reciting the quote and teachings, making the chick curious. In response, he shows a key, indicating there's still hope. This leads the group into disbelief and surprise. It's actually a 3-groove key. Amidst their shocked gazes, he explains that he knew the group would lock the hatch, which is why he didn't reveal his key earlier. Based on the rule, there's a slight chance they could succeed. So if the 2 keys turn out to be the wrong ones, it means 2 people will be eliminated. That's his plan. If they count the dead bald guy and the 2 soon-to-be eliminated individuals, all remaining members will progress to the next level. This shocks the chick, who wonders if they can really escape. Mu Fei pointed at the rule that mentions not to lie. Since rules don't lie, it proves his plan is sound. But Ming Xiaotian interjected, noting a flaw in the plan. After all, the bitch and the fool are definitely cautious. Hearing this, Mu Fei raised an eyebrow, reacting to Ming Xiaotian's naivety, wondering how Ming even passed the first round. Ming Xiaotian replied in the same tone, recalling that his opponent was fat and practically choked himself to death, prompting our boy to point at the kid and ask how he managed to survive the first level. Simply put, the kid must have killed or tricked his opponent to survive. Mu Fei's tone showed the hidden depth of the situation. Now let's shift to the old man, and the kid, the bitch, holding the key, sternly demands the door be opened, leaving no room for protest. Growing impatient, the blonde suggested killing one and being done with it. She acknowledged this but thought ahead, in case they needed someone to sacrifice. Not to mention, our boy will automatically pass if 3 people die. Showing a sinister grin, the blonde looked pleased, deeply impressed by the bitch's cunning. Now offering to be partners. The fool doesn't realize he could be the next sacrificial lamb. Regardless, the blonde, in a commanding tone, orders the old man. The old man, filled with distress, pleads for divine intervention. In this critical moment, knowing it means either success or failure, the system notified. The old man chose the wrong key, and his face contorted in a mix of terror and despair. And just like that, the man loses his head. Next was the kid, who almost wet himself at the sight. The blonde quickly ordered him to open the door. The boy found himself in a dilemma, unable to insert the key. The blonde, annoyed, snapped at the kid for wasting time. This caused the boy to drift into a memory. At the time, he suffered bullying. A figure appeared, seemingly satisfied by the outcome. He stirred up bitterness and a taste for revenge within the boy. The figure's final words fight back. Shifting back to the present, the kid swiftly places the key in the blonde's hand, making the guy furious as he cursed the boy. Fortunately, it was the right key, and the blonde survived, but missed the chance to stab the boy, who ran off without looking back. The girl, seeing this, mocked the guy, whose name is Jin Song, but will stick with blonde for clarity. She reassured him about his luck. However, he doesn't care. He's determined to kill the kid at all costs. Meanwhile, Ming Xiaotian expresses relief seeing the kid escape, but this posed a huge problem. The chick reminded him of their situation. Since 3 people didn't die, they're basically screwed. The conversation soon turned into an argument, with them not forgetting to curse each other's mothers. But their attention was suddenly drawn to the increasing water pressure, making the situation more tense. In a desperate attempt, Ming Xiaotian tried something but grew frustrated with the outcome. All this time, Mu Fei was just calculating, making the chick anxious. Remembering his father's teaching, though the translation is unclear, it suggested his dad instructed him on what to do regarding their water surroundings. It may not make much sense, but our boy is about to figure things out for us. Suddenly, he dives in. Mu Fei descends to where the keys are piled. And just as his father mentioned, he finds another hatch, or what he calls the gate of life. Shifting to Ming Xiaotian, who was surprised by the chick using wire to pick locks, concluding the girl's profession is actually a thief. Anyway, he gave it a try but found the wire too small to work. The situation is dire. Mu Fei emerged in time, noting he found a way out. The two turned to Mu Fei in confusion as he shifted the topic to the bald man who died. Without saying much, Mu Fei reminded them of the valve used on him. Ming Xiaotian expressed relief that the wire actually reaches the valve, but he's still oblivious to how Mu Fei plans to use it. Appearing focused, Mu Fei asked Ming Xiaotian to hand it over, all while explaining the hidden rule that insists on finding the correct key. Now everyone was confused, just like Ming Xiaotian, who expressed disbelief about the nature of the correct key. Mu Fei doesn't respond, diving straight to the gate of life. In the process of opening the hatch, the system chimes, announcing the clearing of the level for using the correct key. The chick was stunned by the sudden completion of the mission. On the other side, Ming Xiaotian appeared elated and excited, admiring Mu Fei's tactics. But the moment the hatch opens, it creates a vortex that sucks them in. Ming Xiaotian noticed the sudden drop in water level, and was astonished that they got sucked in like it's some toilet. Without wasting time, he followed suit, not wanting to be left behind. Following the opening, he finds a potential way out. Before he can proceed, the surrounding water is sucked in with great force. Catching him totally off guard, for a moment, he actually thinks he'll die. Thankfully, he's saved by our boy in time. The two of them manage to make it to the surface. Ming Xiaotian doesn't forget to thank him, to which Mu Fei replied with little concern. Surprised and curious about the chick's mask, the two grew a bit puzzled. Finally seeing Rao Jiechi, it takes a moment before both show a bewildered expression. The scene shifts to a flashback. The captain appears tense about the upcoming meeting since important experts are participating, emphasizing its significance. Just as the female officer reassures him, she accidentally bumps into Mu Fei, causing some of the printed documents to scatter. The captain expresses surprise, asking whether our boy will be taking part in the meeting. With a polite smile, Mu Fei admits he's not a fan of hype titles, suggesting a more casual way to address him since he's younger. From the conversation, we learn Mu Fei is actually a part-time teacher in the anti-fraud department, exactly why the captain holds him in such high regard. The topic shifts to his past achievements, and then to one particular document he finds interesting. The captain, with a knowing look, remarks on the irony of the situation. Apparently, the beautiful woman in the file is ranked as an A-class wanted criminal. And that woman turns out to be none other than our chick. Even more surprising is that the investigation has little to no information on her. Back to the present. The chick appears startled as both guys are still in the water, clearly shocked. Immediately, she covers her face, claiming she's ugly, even though some guys would fill 3 buckets just by looking at her. The two just watch her dramatic performance, as she insists on keeping her face hidden. Meanwhile, Ming Xiaotian ponders, trying to recall where he has seen her. He then asks Mu Fei, who appears serious, possibly deep in thought, for confirmation. Mu Fei gives a knowing smirk but prioritizes their current situation, choosing to leave casual conversation for later. After all, there are only 10 minutes left on the clock, and they need to secure the top spot. They wonder if they're in a sewer, unsure of how the water system works. But Mu Fei recalls the pigman's words, saying they shouldn't bother figuring it out. Soon enough, the exit comes into view. The group manages to make it just in time. Only then do they finally catch their breath. Two couples rejoice after reuniting. Meanwhile, our boy takes note of this and observes the tense atmosphere around them. At that very moment, the game announces, 23 survivors are now in the room. Suddenly, all the entrances and lights vanish, plunging the room into darkness and panic. The game has started. Something big is coming. They're still in the dark, no rules, no timer, or so it seems. Then, the game makes its announcement. All they have to do is find the correct exit. Amid the confusion, Ming Xiaotian recognizes an alarming sound. Without hesitation, he moves to save a man in the path of a massive metal ball. The man in blue, clearly shaken by his near-death experience, along with his wife, thank Ming Xiaotian profusely. The group expresses shock at the massive metal ball that seems to come out of nowhere. The ball ricochets off impact, gaining momentum as it heads straight for an unfortunate NPC. The wind is literally knocked out of him. Everyone watches in horror and disbelief as the NPC is brutally killed. It doesn't take long for everyone to understand the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, Ming Xiaotian breaks into a cold sweat, realizing something disturbing tied to a game he used to play at the arcade. Still, the metal ball continues to crush people like ants. With every kill, the game updates the number of survivors, now 20. The number keeps dropping until only 10 remain. As the ball shifts its trajectory at random, it becomes clear why there are no rules. Survival depends purely on luck. One man is so worried about his wife that he fails to pay attention. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the platform. This triggers Mu Fei to act fast, preventing his group from moving forward recklessly. Studying the platform, they notice circular patterns on the ground. Mu Fei recalls that stepping on one caused the explosion and warns the others. This makes the chick curious about his plan. He explains, this is another ancient teaching, one that deals with time and space. He concludes both the metal ball and the circle stickers move at random, making them impossible to predict. Meanwhile, the metal ball is barreling down the platform again like Truckun, ready to send another victim to the afterlife. But then, by accident, a guy steps on one of the stickers. Suddenly, he's enveloped in a golden protective aura. The ball slams into the barrier and bounces off. Our boy's eyes widen in disbelief. He clearly didn't expect the badge to have another effect. Realization hits him. The bomb pattern causes explosions, but the shield pattern creates a protective barrier. Just then, Ming Xiaotian urgently speaks up, pointing out the crucial discovery. He explains that the entire platform is essentially a giant pinball game. Mu Fei acknowledges this. It makes sense. Their task is to find the exit, which now feels more like a puzzle. Ming Xiaotian gives a thoughtful, detailed analysis, stating that the platform is modeled after an older arcade version. He concludes that the exit should be located at the far end, assuming it doesn't move. But at least now, they have a plan. Shifting focus to the couple, the man speaks with difficulty. His wife pleads with him, but he points at his legs, noting he can't walk. Softly, he urges her to leave him behind. He has figured out the location of the exit and points toward it. Suddenly, the metal ball appears, heading straight for them. Summoning the last of his strength, he pushes his wife towards safety. Determined to save her at the cost of his life, he tears off one of the badges from the ground. His final wish is for her to survive, find their daughter, and raise her well. With a loud bang, his life comes to an end. We see his wife crying deeply. Seeing what's left of her husband, the system updates the number of remaining survivors. On the side, Ming Xiaotian witnesses the noble act and praises the man's sacrifice. It's thanks to him they now know the circles can be removed. Quickly composing herself, the wife dashes off, her expression full of pain and determination, vowing to fulfill her husband's last wish. She runs directly toward the exit. Mu Fei, after some calculations, realizes something terrible. He tries to warn the woman, knowing she's heading for a dead exit. But she's too lost in her thoughts, too focused on the promise she made. She doesn't notice the blades, and just like that, she's sliced clean, like a cucumber. The group stares in wide-eyed horror. The remaining survivors are alarmed by the dangerous situation. It's no longer a surprise. Mu Fei's prediction is right. Worried, the chick asks him for a solution. In response, he turns serious and instructs her to gather as many stickers as she can. She turns exasperated, complaining that it's something both he and Ming Xiaotian should be doing instead. His expression suddenly turns cold, so cold it looks like he could kill her with a glare. That alone is enough to scare her into silence. Resigned, she heads off to gather the stickers, trusting Mu Fei's judgment. After all, he's never been wrong. Ming Xiaotian raises an eyebrow, feeling the task is too much for her to handle. But Mu Fei appears less concerned. He's more focused on completing the challenges and passing the level. Not to mention, in terms of speed and agility, she's one of the best. Recognizing his own shortcomings, Ming Xiaotian shifts the conversation to the main issue. Mu Fei shares his hypothesis based on observation. Trying to figure out the exact pinball pattern is a waste of time. Instead, they should roughly understand how the pinball machine works and which directions matter most. Hearing this, Ming Xiaotian shares his own thoughts, explaining that the direction depends greatly on perspective. Basically, north should be up and south should be down. He notes that the place where the pinball gains momentum is around the northeast. Mu Fei adds that this is unfavorable, based on his analysis. Just then, Ming Xiaotian exclaims in amazement after discovering another exit, the so-called game over path of the pinball machine. Mu Fei watches him dash off, observant as always. Ming also urges him to follow. They approach a wall on the platform. But Ming Xiaotian is disappointed. It's not what they were hoping for. Mu Fei speaks up, suggesting they confirm the structure by punching the wall with all their might. Ming prepares his fist, and then delivers a solid punch, strong enough to knock out Mike Tyson. After all, Ming Bro is a martial arts instructor. To their astonishment, the wall is hollow. It contains a hidden path. Mu Fei reacts quickly as Ming plans to punch their way through. Even without a visible timer, he explains they don't have much time. In summary, Ming's punching plan is a complete waste of effort. That's why he sent the chick, who now appears, arriving with a bunch of stickers. She hands them over, and Mu Fei examines the quantity. If all goes well, it should be more than enough. He begins placing the stickers on the hollow wall. The chick observes and points out that Mu Fei is forming a 4-point explosion. Ming Xiaotian looks confused. She explains that the 4-point formation is likely used to enhance the explosiveness of the stickers. Then, she finishes her explanation by pointing out that the middle sticker is meant to trigger detonation for the rest. Once again, Ming Xiaotian is both curious and bewildered, demanding to know her profession. Flustered, she only deflects the conversation. But Mu Fei interjects, insisting they focus on the matter at hand. It's finally time for them to attempt yet another grand escape. The metal ball gains momentum, ready to claim another life. As they try to outrun it, the chick steps in, activating a barrier sticker. It sends the ball ricocheting. Ming Xiaotian follows her lead, also sending the ball to ricochet, this time toward Mu Fei. It seems their tactic is inspired by a game of pinball. Mu Fei appears calm, but inwardly, he knows it's thanks to his friend's efforts that this plan will succeed. He activates his barrier sticker, sending the pinball flying toward the explosive stickers on the hollow wall. Upon impact, a massive explosion rocks the entire platform, sending dust and debris into the air. It creates the opening they needed to escape. One background character stands in awe, marveling at the spectacle. But his admiration is short-lived. Moments later, he's gone, and the number of survivors drops to 7. However, the explosion accelerates the metal ball, causing more casualties and reducing the number of survivors to 4. Amidst the chaos, Ming Xiaotian anxiously searches for Mu Fei and the chick. To his shock, he sees them already escaping. The girl is quick on her feet. Before he can say anything, Mu Fei cuts him off, insisting they focus on safety first. Shortly after, Mu Fei feels a sharp pain, realizing he was injured by debris during the explosion. Meanwhile, the 4th survivor bursts into laughter, relieved and elated that he survives, only to be crushed by the metal ball as it alters its trajectory. This makes the group furious. They've yet to fully escape this deadly situation. As usual, the chick takes point and leads the charge, sprinting faster than world-class athletes. Given the design of the wall, there are limited escape options. In response, the chick insists they conserve their energy and run, rather than waste it shouting. Seeing she has already reached the exit, he encourages Mu Fei to pick up the pace. Not understanding why Mu Fei is running slower, Ming turns to him, and sees his friend acting completely unaware of the danger. He yells, trying to snap him out of it. In response, Mu Fei reassures him, promising he'll catch up soon. Ming Xiaotian nods, understanding. Meanwhile, our boy resorts to his final move. His knee can no longer endure the strain of running. And knowing Ming's personality, he knows his friend would choose to save him, even at the cost of his own life. So, holding the bomb sticker, Mu Fei begins formulating a plan to escape. But before we proceed, the scene switches to a man holding someone hostage, strapping him to a bomb. If the person he's referring to wants to save the hostage, she must reach the location within 10 minutes. And that person is none other than Rao Jiechi. Anyway, back to the present, she dashes toward the exit. After a quick inspection, she finds the door is unlocked. But it's too heavy to force open. With Ming Xiaotian's arrival, both of them try to force it open. Rao Jiechi learns from him that Mu Fei stays behind since he has a shield sticker to buy them some time. Well, her face says it all. They had used all their shield stickers before coming. Adding to their troubles is the sudden appearance of a metal ball. Both of them panic as the ball heads straight for them. However, the chick manages to point out a spot where they can dodge the ball, and at the same time, an opportunity to open the door. But Ming Xiaotian is more concerned about Mu Fei, calling his name in desperation. Thankfully, Rao Jiechi intervenes swiftly. The large ball collides with the door with great momentum, forcing it open. Relief washes over them, but Ming shows no expression. This makes her hesitate, and she tries to stop him. Questioning Ming, he expresses a firm desire to help Mu Fei. The chick is stunned, indeed bros before hoes. Anyway, with time running out, and based on the situation, it's highly unlikely Mu Fei survived. She tries to talk some sense into him. Ming Xiaotian brings up the fact that Mu Fei once saved him. If it wasn't for him, he'd have died a long time ago. Meanwhile, our chick is at a loss for words, hearing what seems like nonsense. She can only follow suit while muttering a sarcastic remark under her breath, calling Ming Xiaotian a bastard. But the next moment, their eyes look like they could pop out of their sockets. They're shocked beyond belief to find our boy alive. Meanwhile, the boy smirks, raising an eyebrow. Apparently, he didn't expect the chick to come for him. Ming Xiaotian inspects the bleeding, concluding that Mu Fei's kneecap is injured. But Rao Jiechi is curious as to how he survived the metal ball. Mu Fei recalls the event with a smirk. Well, it's basic math. Since the diameter of the ball is the same as the width of the passage, he hid in the gap. It was risky, but it was the only thing he could think of in the heat of the moment. Ming Xiaotian reacts like any normal person would, and the fact that Mu Fei is so calm while reporting this speaks volumes. Our protagonist really is smart. Meanwhile, the chick brings them back to reality, urging them to move on if they still have energy to chat. So, Ming Xiaotian offers to help Mu Fei, earning his gratitude. Mu Fei is also updated as they head to the next level. He asks for more details, but the group has no idea since they rushed in to save him. Upon entering, they find themselves in some kind of cold room. Ming Xiaotian looks confused, wondering if they are in a freezer. Mu Fei points to the rules displayed. To open the door, 30 kilograms of meat must be placed on the balance. The rules seem simple, but Mu Fei raises an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Rao Jiechi is resolved to give it a try. Astonishingly, she lifts 30 kilograms like it's paper. The weight is registered in the system, followed by an announcement for meeting the requirement, so the group hurries with only 5 minutes left to reach the football pitch. But then they see something no one could have imagined. The dog couple is fighting it out, piquing their curiosity. Seeing people arrive, the blonde urges them to return to the cold room. The door slams shut the moment he tells them to get more meat. Furious, the blonde calls them a bunch of idiots. Meanwhile, the bitch seizes the opportunity, landing a knee strike right into the blonde's family jewels. Grimacing on the ground, he curses her. She, on the other hand, escapes, pleading for help and accusing the blonde of being a lunatic. Honestly, from their situation, it's ironic. First she tries to end Mu Fei's group, and now she's suddenly pleading for help. The guy, with an unsettling grin, like someone who enjoys killing as a hobby, reports how he tried to kill her. But the blonde just laughs. She's no different. If he were the weaker one, he'd be the one begging for help right now. While lying on the ground, he notices something interesting. Outside the room lies the football pitch. In other words, this is the last stage. And this time, the rule is to place more than 20 kilograms of meat on the scale. Now it makes sense why he tried to stop Mu Fei's group from entering earlier. 2 scales are present, meaning they need 2 sets of meat. The deranged fellow turns sinister. Well, the situation is obvious. They have to sacrifice 2 people. It's the only way to pass the final level. The blonde continues to challenge them, throwing tantrums upon seeing them remain quiet. Finally, Ming Xiaotian speaks up. He's been itching to throw hands with the fool for a while, and from a moral standpoint, killing the blonde can be considered self-defense. Giving a knowing smile, he confirms this with Mu Fei, who agrees without hesitation. Well, I guess it's time to beat the living crap out of the blonde. The guy is clearly frustrated and sweating bullets, shaken by Ming Xiaotian's aura. Regardless, he puts on an irritated expression and starts provoking them. Ironically, he points out Ming Xiaotian's hypocrisy, claiming they're the same. But Ming Xiaotian isn't interested in having a conversation. He takes a fighting stance. The blonde strikes first. Turns out he's confident now, likely because he's using a kitchen knife. Basically, he has the advantage in attack range. Ming Xiaotian is well aware of that and dodges carefully. The blonde is leaving little to no openings. But with only 3 minutes left to complete the level, the bitch notes that time is running out, and it'll definitely take more than 3 minutes for a winner to be decided. Just as she begins formulating a plan, Mu Fei, watching from the side, can read her like a book. He instructs Rao Jiechi to take her weapon. The bitch snaps. Regardless, she decides to play along, pretending to hand the pipe over. Spotting the opportunity, the bitch drives the knife straight into the chick's belly. She didn't see that coming. She falls to the ground as the bitch makes a sickening expression. Ming Xiaotian reacts anxiously at the sight, totally forgetting about the fight. The blonde, too, reacts, but with curiosity. After all, the knife belongs to him. The bitch explains, briefly, that she stole it when Mu Fei and his group first arrived. Anyway, her account is irrelevant now. They don't have much time. She roars at them to stop fighting. Time is of the essence, and they're going to split the chick as meat. This creates a distraction, and the blonde seizes the opportunity to land a blow on Ming Xiaotian. Jin Song, acting like a man, suggests they use 2 people instead. After all, time is running out. Seeing this development, Mu Fei stands up, favoring his injured knee. He begins walking toward the blonde while mumbling words of divination. His expression turns cold, signaling a threat as he locks eyes with the blonde. Jin Song reacts, wondering how a guy who can barely stand is mumbling like a priest, and whether he plans to avenge his comrades. Mu Fei doesn't say much in response. Even though he's injured, he can still handle 2 charging trash bags with ease. He demonstrates by dodging the first strike. Then he counters by grabbing the bitch by the hand, putting her in some kind of hold, before attempting to stick a bomb sticker on her face. From her expression, it's clear she has no idea what it is. Mu Fei handles her within seconds. Almost makes Jin Song's jaw drop. It seems Mu Fei's plan is to use the girl's face to detonate the bomb, which works, and the place rings with a massive explosion. Ming Xiaotian watches, curious. He drags himself forward with what little strength he has left. From the blood, it's clear he's in critical condition. He inspects Mu Fei and notices his arm is injured. But he calms down when he sees our boy is still breathing, which comes as a relief. The situation grows tense. There's only 1 minute left to reach the final level. Since both of his friends are out of commission, the sole responsibility of passing the level now weighs on him. Now only 40 seconds remain after the scale mission is completed. As the door to the stadium opens, Bro is out here thinking and feeling like the most worthless and useless character in a movie. Basically, he hasn't contributed much, only gotten in the way. That says a lot about the guy's character. No matter what, Ming Xiaotian uses his last strength to ensure they reach the stadium. Shifting to the center of the stadium, we see 3 people. One of them is the chubby kid from before. Man, this kid surviving makes me want to call him Miracle Kid henceforth. Anyway, the kid recognizes the people who saved him. He desperately turns to the cop for help to save his injured friend. However, the game master steps in, issuing a warning. Both could have their results cancelled if they try aiding anyone. The kid cheers loudly. After all, that's all he can do. also giving Ming Xiaotian a heads up. Ming Xiaotian, looking exhausted, is relieved to see the kid alive. Regardless, the kid warns him that the moment he steps into the field, it triggers the machines surrounding the track, which begin firing steel metal balls toward them. Ming Xiaotian watches them heading toward him in slow motion. In such a state, how can he manage to move, let alone dodge, while carrying both Mu Fei and the chick? Bro is the definition of screwed. And what's worse, there are only 12 seconds left to get to the center of the stadium.